There are a couple movies that always come to my mind when I think of underrated or forgotten films. 12 Angry Men, Stardust, Dread, The Cat in the Hat. But there's always one movie that immediately launches to the forefront of my mind, and that is the 1999 Brad Bird directed animated movie, The Iron Giant. I was pretty young when the movie came out, and definitely didn't understand the concept of film as a business, so I don't really know why this movie didn't do well at the box office, only racked up about $30 million. But I can assume a couple different reasons for it. For one, it probably had some garbage marketing. I don't know if it was that Warner Brothers didn't have much confidence in the movie, which wouldn't really make sense because it's a really good movie, but it probably didn't have too much of a marketing campaign. But another reason I don't think it succeeded so much was Warner Brothers animation was definitely on the lower end of the animation scale. Disney was in the tail end of their Disney Renaissance, which you can learn about in my other video, releasing Tarzan and Fantasia 2000 in the same year. Pixar was the new cool kid on the block, putting out Toy Story 2 that same year. Hell, even Pokemon 2000 did better than The Iron Giant in 1999. And it sucks because out of all those movies, Iron Giant is definitely the best, with Toy Story being like right there with it. So, who knows why this movie failed to draw in the crowd, but it's truly a bummer. So since many people haven't seen it, let me give you a quick rundown of the movie. The film takes place in a small New England town in the 1950s, during the Cold War, and when the fear of atomic blast was felt. The movie starts with a UFO from space crashing into the ocean, where a lone seaman witnesses a giant mysterious thing rise out of the water. We then meet our main character, 9-year-old Hogarth Hughes. He is an only child being raised by his mom, because his father died, I think. His mother, played by Jennifer Aniston, works at a diner. No, not that one. One day, Hogarth's mom has to work late shifts, so naturally, Hogarth stays up late watching some of the classic 1950s cheese horror movies. But his TV receiver starts to bug out, so Hogarth goes to explore to find the issue at the electrical station close to his home. When Hogarth gets there, he discovers a giant robot trying to eat the transmission lines. The giant begins to be electrocuted, and despite wearing his brown pants, Hogarth decides to help the robot and shuts down the station. A day or so after his first encounter, Hogarth goes back out to the woods to find the giant. After discovering him, he learns that the giant, who can't speak much but does have the angelic voice of Vin Diesel, doesn't have much memory of what he is or where he came from. The two become friends, and Hogarth helps the severely confused robot understand more about our world, such as the differences between rocks and trees. Hogarth wants to keep the giant a secret because he doesn't know how positive the reaction would be to him, so he tries to keep the giant hidden the best he can. The giant accidentally breaks a train track, and in the process of fixing it to make sure an oncoming train doesn't crash, the giant is hit and is broken up a bit, so Hogarth brings him back to his house and hides him in his barn. There, Hogarth learns that the giant can repair himself. Shooter McGavin plays Kent Mansley, a government agent who is investigating strange occurrences going on in the small town. A crazy old man saying that he saw an alien crash in the ocean, people's metal equipment being bitten into, and even his own car being stolen. During his investigation, Kent found a BB gun with the words "Hog Hug" on it. He then goes to the Hughes home to borrow a phone, and after some weird shenanigans, Kent realizes Hog Hug is Hogarth Hughes. So Kent suspects Hogarth of hiding away something big. Hogarth talks to the giant about needing to stay hidden and shows him comic books to keep him entertained. Hogarth shows him some cool Superman comics, and the giant is disappointed to see Atomo, a giant robot in the comics, is depicted as a world destroyer, but Hogarth assures the giant that you are who you choose to be. Hogarth goes to Dean, played by Harry Connick Jr., because he was having a riveting career in the late 90s, who owns a junkyard and asks him to keep the giant hidden there. Ken continues his investigations around Hogarth and finds some photographs taken by him and sees a super sick selfie taken by him with the giant. So he calls the military into town and goes down to hunt the giant. Hogarth and Dean disguise the giant as a scrap metal piece of art. Kent feels like an idiot and the military decides to head out of town. Hogarth and the giant are playing some games together. When the giant sees a toy gun, he pulls out some real weapons and almost vaporizes Hogarth. Dean gets mad and yells at the giant. The giant gets sad and runs away. The giant sees some kids falling off of a building in town and saves them. Ken convinces the military to turn around and attack the robot. The giant's weapons easily overpower the military. Hogarth catches up to the giant and tries to calm him down, but Hogarth gets knocked out, and the giant thinks that he is dead, so he goes full-on weapon mode, showing his true destructive power. The military readies a nuclear launch at the giant. Hogarth wakes back up, and he goes back to the giant. He again calms the giant down, and Dean explains to the military that he's only attacking them out of defense. So the military calms down. Kent is a dummy and orders the nuclear bomb to launch. The only issue is that the missile is locked onto the giant, who's still standing in the middle of town. Hogarth explains to the giant that because of this, everyone will die. The giant tells Hogarth that he's leaving and flies up into the atmosphere and flies straight into the nuclear bomb, saving everyone's life rather than being a weapon of mass destruction. Kent is arrested, and the giant is seen as a hero in the town. Hogarth receives a package from the military's general. He is told it's the only thing recovered from the explosion, and is a bolt piece from the giant. Later on in that night, the bolt is trying to leave Hogarth's room, and we see it rolling back with other pieces that are making their way back to the giant, who is still alive and happy. So yeah, that was it. The movie is just a delightful romp, and there are many things to love about it. Even something as simple as the design and the setting of the movie is great. It takes place in the 1950s and truly looks like it aesthetically. The movie also really captures the idea the fear people had back in the 50s about these massively destructive weapons being created by the warring nations during the Cold War. Using that setting and that fear really helps push the story to a deeper level when everyone sees what the giant's true potential is. But even the giant's design looks like what would be on the poster of a 1950s alien invasion movie. It's kind of cool looking. And the movie came out at a time when 3D animation was just up and coming, so they decided to meld 2D and 3D together, where the giant is a 3D creation in a 2D world, and it looks pretty good. All of it is great to look at. It's just a fun movie to watch, and it's a movie I enjoy watching every second of, even the devastating ending. I think it's so satisfying to watch because of the story. Brad Bird is a name that if you don't know, you probably should know. He's a part of the Pixar family, directing both The Incredibles and Ratatouille, two Pixar movies many would argue are the best in the lot. He also directed maybe the best Mission Impossible movie with Ghost Protocol. I don't know. It's up to you. Maybe Rogue Nation, maybe Ghost Protocol. Who knows? That's on you. There's no arguing that he is a really fantastic director, and he super shines here. He gives so much meaning to this friendship that is developed between this lonely kid and a giant alien robot. They are so different from each other on the outside, but truly they are just two beings that are sort of lost in this huge world that we live in. Hogarth teaches the giant about the world that we live in and what consists in it, from things in nature to how you should act in public to what death is. You think that it's just Hogarth teaching the giant, but the giant also helps Hogarth to understand friendship and what it's like to lose a close friend. The story is truly what brings this movie together, and it's really a story about a boy and his giant robot alien weapon dog. And this humongous robot dog has a soul that we feel for. Brad Bird himself even said that he wanted to make a movie where a gun had a soul, and that soul didn't want to kill. We feel bad for this creature that starts to realize that he is a death machine, but he doesn't want to be. He wants to be seen as a hero. And that is exactly where this movie hits me, is right in the emotions. Like I said, the movie does a great job of showing this great friendship develop between these two characters. And so not only does Hogarth fall in love with this giant, but so do we. And that's where the movie gets you, just right in the gut. The big climax of this movie is, honest to God, one of the most emotionally impactful scenes to any movie that I have ever seen. I'm not really a person that is afraid to admit that I cried during movies, but it's hardly ever like bawling, It's generally just one single tear forms up in my eye. I'm like, oh, it's so sad. But then I'm over it. It's fine. But every now and again, a movie comes along where it legitimately makes me cry. I'm talking about multiple streams coming down my face, just waterfalls, just ugh. I'm not entirely sure how many times I've seen this damn movie, but it's quite a few, and it wasn't until I got a little older that it really started to hit me. But the ending scene, waterworks, literally every single time. Let me go into this a little bit more in detail. So when the giant sees that the missile is being launched, Hogarth explains that everyone will die. So the giant looks around and sees the fear in everyone and realizes that he sort of created the problem. So he goes to Hogarth and tells him,
"You stay
And this bastard flies up into the air, racing towards the missile. Music is building, and the giant hears Hogarth's words in his heads. You are who you choose to be. And then he gives a big stupid smile and says, Superman. And he flies straight into that missile, destroying himself and saving everyone's life in the process. I almost get choked up even thinking about it. And I have no idea why this movie has such an impact on me, but it does. Jesus Christ, it's just a great scene. Everything about it is put together so well. Hogarth's realization that he's about to lose a friend, the sadness you see in him, while everyone is looking at the magnificent explosion that just happened in the sky, Hogarth is the only one that has his face covered and is looking away. You really feel the loss from this boy. Like, imagine your dog or your cat or your parakeet, flying into your room and being like, hey dude, there's a person breaking into the house right now. I'm going to go stop them, but I'll probably die in the process. But at least you'll live, friend, right? And then it kisses you on the cheek and then skirtles upstairs. And then you hear a gunshot and then like a body fall on the floor and you go upstairs. And there's just feathers all over the place and the attacker is dead. And you're like, oh my God. It's pretty heartbreaking, right? The movie, of course, ends on a happy note, though, with the giant rebuilding itself. So you're not completely devastated when you're leaving the movie. It really is a great movie, great characters, a fun story with some good humor and a fantastic emotional conclusion. The animation is great, the action scenes look awesome, and it's just all around a very, very well put together movie. Truly an underrated gem. Gem. I don't want to re-record. Truly an underrated gem. I do see it slowly but consistently catching the attention of more and more people, which is fantastic. Everyone who loves animation or just good filmmaking should go out and see this movie. And don't forget to bring some tissues.